I go by the name of Eyeconic. I am a Polish native, but I've lived for about 15 years in England. I'm 25 now, so over like more than just half of my life. And I make rap music, and yeah, I mainly just write and record. Sometimes I've been starting out to play instruments recently, but that's something I'm only just picking up as well. And also, I've actually listened to your interview with Shaq live.
Yeah,
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was brilliant. We really got into it. We want to pick up with all of that again. I mean, ultimately, let's hope when all these interviews are done and we can have a big gathering where we can have a massive party down at the auxiliary with all the interviewers and interviewees and tech people and everything. And yeah, really looking forward to that. And
yeah, I love that.
Yeah, we'll do some live broadcasts on the day when that happens. That'll be really, really excited to do all that. But this is where we are for now. So have you always made music? When did you first start getting into all this?
I was about 12, I think. I just I started to find hip hop because like throughout my life, there's been these just little moments, like little pockets where I would be exposed to hip hop. Like my brothers always listened to it. So I've got two older brothers. They always listened to it, but it was nothing that ever grabbed me. But it was often through video games. So like there was this like Sonic the Hedgehog video game when I was maybe 6 or 7 years old, and there was this one level where there was hip hop playing, and I didn't know it was hip hop, but I liked the music, so I would just leave the game playing in the background because there was no access to internet or anything like that. So so I would just listen to the music through that, or like Grand Theft Auto and stuff like that. So those were like the first little pockets where I was exposed to these things. And then as I grew older, and then I moved over to England, I started spending because the only people I knew were my brothers that I could hang around with that weren't my parents. So they just educated me a lot on like Polish hip hop. And then I discovered American hip hop, fell in love with it, and started digging deeper and deeper into the more underground stuff. And then once I was properly introduced to all the British hip hop, that's when I just like that's when I properly infused and found my own identity. But that only happened in about the last 5-6 years. I think it took me quite a while to find my own identity.
Interesting. So how do you go about writing your stuff? Have you just like always got a notepad with you, or like a phone or whatever, and just things as they happen?
So whenever, it's usually on the go actually. Like I write down ideas, or I will bump into someone that I know and they'll remind me of something, because my process is very it's biographical, the word, when you actually write your own stories. Yeah, so that's kind of the process. I just it's whatever I've experienced, the conversations I've had with people. So let's say if there's anything even during our conversation that would inspire me or inspire a certain thought, I would mention like the conversation and a thought and inspired and stuff like that. So it's very, very personal, but at the same time, it's something that other people can connect with, because emotion is such a, it's I'm losing the word. It's yeah, it's something that anyone can connect with regardless of the actual situation.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the early interviews that I did with a local screenwriter issued in, and he was saying that, you know, whatever he's writing about, actually he's just writing about those universal themes that we have. And and I think that you know, particularly at the moment, we can all really connect with that. And no, I normally do the lockdown question at the end, but bearing in mind like that creative process that you have, how's that been affected by lockdown? Because it's not just like the people that you're talking to, it's, you know, it's kind of the atmosphere, the chance interactions, the snippets of conversations with strangers that must input into your work. And have you been able to write stuff?
In a weird way, I haven't actually wrote about my experiences in lockdown. Lockdown has allowed me to reflect a lot more and dig deeper into my psyche. So I feel like there's situations in my life that I might have forgotten about, or put to the back of my brain. And now, because I have so much time to think, I'm tapping back into them, and not even realizing that, like, oh, maybe that situation could have affected me and I didn't even realize. But because I'm still constantly working, but obviously I'm not out and about. There's no other like real stimulus apart from the household or like a field with my dogs. So but interestingly enough, recently I was speaking to my friend's sister. She's doing a PhD in literature, and she mentioned how this lockdown and everything is going to be it's going to bring a lot of interesting movies and books. And I mentioned that I forgot the time frame now, but the postmodernist era of literature, everyone was always that's when people finally started to think about feelings, like Virginia Woolf and stuff like that. She was a very introspective writer, and time was a big theme in postmodernist literature. So I think it's going to be like a rise of postmodernist literature all over again after we start coming out of lockdown.
Interesting. Yeah, because I studied postmodernism at uni as well, and yeah, this idea of once there was a universal time, like Greenwich Mean Time, they come in with the trains, and it's like, from before then, noon was when the sun was directly above you.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that wasn't going to work in the new era, and yeah, all that idea of what time is like, the relativity of time, and that, I guess that's something that we've all experienced in lockdown, the expansion of time, contraction as well. And yeah, really interesting. I do think, I certainly hope that that we don't just go back to normal, and that there are things that come out of this.
What do you feel like we could actually get? Is it appreciation for time, or do you think there's something more?
I think appreciation of what actually counts, what's worthwhile. Appreciation of that there isn't any unskilled labour, and that the people that we rely on most for society to function have probably been the most overlooked and maligned. And that actually, it's like being able to hug one another and see your friends and people you love and just be out. That's what we value. It's like, I don't think anyone's kind of thing, it's like having a really expensive watch or a really flash car right now. Maybe the flash car might be fun because you can
you can drive it around.
You could have gone off to Barnard Castle or something. Yeah, I think it's given us time to really think about what's important, and I hope that that's taken forward. We can only hope. And I do think that the arts have suffered a great deal, but we're all kind of raring to go, and I think it's been the arts that have seen people through. Anyway, I'm talking far too much in your interview.
It's fine.
So do you, like, obviously I know you got this kind of you had this great thing with Shaq. What events have you played? Where do you focus? And like, obviously you haven't been doing any gigs lately, apart from like the online ones. Have you got a plan of where you want things to go over the next few years?
I've actually performed at Basecamp when the pubs and venues were allowed to do the socially distanced events, and that was really fun. That was it was a strange experience, because I always like to get people involved in the actual performance, whether it's just call and response or anything like that. And I had no idea how I would get people excited when they're just sat down at tables. And I tried to figure out a way. So I thought of getting like tapping out a 4x4 beat. I got one table to bang on the first beat. I got another table to clap on the third beat, and then I had people doing this in the triplets in between beats. So it created like a sort of like a 140 BPM beat, and then I rapped over it, and that was
nice.
That made me feel like maybe there is ways to overcome this, but it's still, like, as much as I enjoyed that, it's still not a way that's as fulfilling for an artist to perform personally. But I would love to I would love to do more festivals because I was booked for the Hilapalooza festival, which got cancelled. And then now, yeah, that's it. I just want things to be back to normal, to be honest. I used to perform quite a lot in Newcastle. So before I started getting booked at base camp, I used to mostly perform in Borough when I was doing like drum and bass raves. So I host them. My friend Adam Sullivan, he puts on these events called Cast. And it's like drum and bass, jungle, and all the electronic dance music. And that's where I mostly perform when I'm in Middlesbrough. But most of my gigs are actually out in Newcastle.
Okay, well, we recently got a little sound system down at the gallery, courtesy of Donny Jevs. So
sorry.
Yeah, it's a very good sound system, and we're just looking for the opportunity to unleash it. So maybe we can convince you to give us a little take to the stage a little bit at our
I love that.
Whenever that happens. That'd
I love
be great.
that.
But what I'd really like is like for everybody involved in this interview project to be exhibited or performing, or you know, some way a big part of this big event that's going to launch this whenever we get chance.
Sound system, as in you guys put on like drum and bass events or like dub or.
So do you know Donny Jevs?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so it's Donny's sound system. He used to put on impromptu events, and he needed a sound system. So we decided that, you know, we could definitely come to some arrangement. So obviously we haven't had a chance to use it in public. We tried it out in private a couple of times, and it's certainly fine tuned now. Okay.
Yeah, so, I love
that. Yeah, that's the plan. And you know, just I've always wanted one. And also recently, do you know Chris and Tilly from what are they called? The Teesside Dub Club.
I know Tilly. I think I might have spoke. Actually, what's Chris's surname?
Nottingham.
Okay. I think I know him.
So they're
I'm just bad with names.
I know they're hoping to get their own system together. I don't know how long that's going to be, but they've also been interviewees. So maybe we can have a proper sound clash going on. That would be lovely.
Let me know.
So I think we'll leave it there. It's kind of, I'm not used to doing interviews at night, and I get probably a bit too chatty. But it's been absolutely.
Oh no, it's fine. I'm up for more if you want to.
Well, let's meet up off record and have a chat about what we can plan in the next couple of years, whether it's social distance or proper down messy.
Perfect. In a
good
way,
old days.
Just one question. When do you think all this will come back to normal?
I mean, they got this new vaccine. The Oxford vaccine looks a lot more promising. There's an online calculator where you can find out when you're due a vaccine. For me, that's between July and September. But I don't know whether once the most at risk are vaccinated, whether that means that more of us can get out. I don't know. But you know, I'm just clinging desperately to hope. That's what I do. That's my job. It's lovely to meet you, Sam. And,
it's been lovely to meet you. Thank you for getting me on.
No, it's an absolute pleasure, and look forward to meeting you in person.
Look forward to that as well. One love. Thank you.